Max Verstappen breaks his own wins record with a dominant performance. Lando Norris with not one but two recovery drives. And the only way to sum up the Mexican Grand Prix for the hometown hero is devastation as Checo Perez DNFs on turn 1, lap 1. This is Into the Chicane, a Formula One podcast, the Mexico City, not the Mexico Grand Prix.
Correct.
The Mexico. What was that little whisper you just did?
It was just a false start.
That's going to be a 10-second penalty. We're going to have to go back. The Mexico City Grand Prix. I've been calling it the Mexico Grand Prix for a long time, and I forget that it's actually the Mexico City Grand Prix. It's one of the rare ones that's named after the city, like Imola.
Yeah, because I think the city itself spends a bunch of money to make it happen. So
yeah, I dig it. I just wanted to come correct on this one. The Mexico City Grand Prix.
Did you have FOMO this year?
I had big time FOMO, and I was thinking about this. Imagine the butterfly effect that could have happened had I been there.
Okay.
Had I gone, who knows? I could have kicked a trash can that rolled out, a Coke bottle that made its way into, custodian has to pick it up. That kind of reroutes that custodian. They now make their way to the paddock at a different time. Maybe they bump into Checo on his way to the garage or the garage, as they would pronounce it in Formula One. That kind of resets his mentality. It just, a ripple effect of things. Who knows what could have happened? Yeah, big time FOMO on just being there. It looked like, again, an amazing event. They always put on a good show.
Did you watch the opening ceremonies at all? The driver parade?
Yeah, I watched a little bit. It was a little too long. It was, there's only so many laps you can watch of these guys in really nice vintage cars just waving.
Yeah, but I mean, just overall of the opening ceremony / driver parades,
it's the best
by far.
It's by far the best.
I couldn't help but just having it on, just watching. Usually, it just feels very monotonous. You're going through the motions, but with this, just the crowd, the atmosphere. I'm also a sucker for a marching band.
Sure,
and they were really good. So. That was just so cool to see, and for that to set the stage for the weekend.
Yeah,
it was really great.
When I talk about Mexico City being a great race, we all know that it's not the track. We all know that it's not Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez that's making it a good race. It's the atmosphere. They put on a show. It's the best event. One of them, at least. I'm sure there are other great tracks to be at for the atmosphere, but. Yeah, it's a good time there. Do
you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's start off. I guess we'll go over qualities. Not a whole lot to talk about in practices.
Yeah, but like you were saying, this one of the great racetracks on the circuit that we get to go to every year. One of the things that I do love about this track is that it has such unique environmental aspects to it, being the altitude. The altogether the arrangement of the circuit really threw a lot of the teams for a loop this weekend. That's why we got to see some definite changes in the qualifying order. A couple teams got caught out. A couple teams got a little bit of an advantage. So qualifying, we got to see Ferraris lock out the front row.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a surprise.
1 and 2, they Q3, they had their first go at it. Both cars had an amazing pace, blew everybody away. I don't know if they went out on another set of fresh tires or not, but they both went for another run. Both could not capitalize. Nobody actually could get anywhere close to those first run times. So it was one of those things where, with the uniqueness of the circuit, with the altitude on stuff, like all the cars had a very touchy aerodynamic setup for the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Like just the small amount of change in track temperature would give one team an advantage or give another team a disadvantage. So you got to see that play out in the qualifying. Daniel Ricciardo.
There's two big storylines from quali. One is Lando Norris misses Q2 and ends up qualifying P20 because he doesn't put in a hot lap at all. They only send him out on one flying lap.
He
they sent him out. They sent him out on one. He locked up, right?
Yeah, he had a little mistake.
So he didn't really get like a second one. Or he on his second one, Fernando Alonso spins it.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow flag ends up ending. They basically red flagged it, right? Ended the session.
Yeah, no, because there was a bunch of cars out on their final run, so
it was a yellow flag that was essentially a red flag, at least for Lando.
Yeah, because they just with how much time was left in the qualifying, it ruined a bunch of laps for everybody.
So Lando doesn't really get in a hot lap and ends up qualifying P20, which holy goddamn shit, that was a shocker.
Yeah,
because I think that he could have, had he qualified high in the order, I think he could have contended for P2. Definitely.
100%.
So that one was a shocker. And then, Daniel Ricciardo qualifies P4 in an AlphaTauri.
Yeah, nobody really expected that to happen. It was definitely quite a surprise. You did expect that?
Did I not? I mean, we'll go over this when we look at our predictions, but did I not say that I had Daniel Ricciardo in the points?
You had him in the points, but I mean...
I expected him to have a good weekend, but not a P4. We're talking,
yeah, but points you're saying, I'm thinking 9 or 10, somewhere in there. But qualifying fourth is kind of wild.
My statement was, this is a track that he knows well. He's driven this track a lot. Mm-hmm. He's familiar with this. These North American tracks are like his second home. So I had a feeling he was going to do well here. Not that well. I don't even know what to say about that. Is it a fluke?
Yeah, I think he kind of got the same flattering with the track temp that the Ferraris got in a way. So overall, throughout the weekend, he did a great job. So
he held it down.
Was able to manage it. So good on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we said, in the race, going into turn one, we saw both Ferraris didn't get the greatest jump as expected.
Yeah. Let's talk about the starts because Charles Leclerc doesn't get a good start. Like you said, Carlos Sainz doesn't get a good start. Max Verstappen gets a great start, which is almost, I don't want to say it's rare, but to see him get a jump like that
doesn't happen that often. Usually he's one of the ones on the back foot.
Yeah. Correct. Daniel Ricciardo gets a good start, and Checo actually gets the best start of the top 5.
Yeah, and
his reaction time was 0.22. It was 0.07 seconds faster than Max Verstappen's, and it paid off for him.
Yeah, got a great launch, and then he just had that open window for him to just get right in behind, and then...
He had a triple slipstream, too. He had a slipstream every which way he went. Whether he went to the right, he had Carlos Sainz. If he went in the middle, he had Max Verstappen. If he went to the left, he had Charles Leclerc. So he bolted all the way up the left side. He pulled kind of a Max Verstappen 2021, where Max started P3 and went all the way around the outside. Take it away. What happens next?
Checo, although he has a great launch and has a feeling that he's in the lead going into turn one, unfortunately, Charles is still there, and so when he turns in, he and Charles collide with each other. Charles gets off with just some front wing damage. Checo gets sent off the track, gets a big old hole in the side pod, damages probably his rear suspension. Just
you have to imagine. Yeah, the rear suspension probably went because it sent him 5 or 6 feet in the air, with the back end being at the highest point. Hard slam onto the ground. If the suspension didn't take a hit, the chassis might have. Yeah. You think his gearbox got trashed?
Probably. I mean, well, he was able to make it around. So it was probably just a suspension thing.
Yeah, he made it to the pit. I wouldn't doubt, though, if something more mechanical did get messed up, and maybe he's going to need a change for Interlagos. Who knows? We'll see more, on Friday. But big hole in the side of his car. I couldn't believe it. It actually got fucking spoiled for me.
Did it really?
Yeah, because I was watching on a delay because we had to drive, a little bit out of town. To go meet up with some folks. We were going to watch it there. I was going to watch it on about a 20-minute delay, and I got a text from my dad, and he just goes, "Why is the Mexican dude out?" And I was like, "Dude,
thanks, Dad.
What are you talking like?"
Yeah.
And I just dropped my phone. Like if ever there's not a time you want something spoiled, it's a Checo accident in Mexico City.
Yeah, I mean, because all of the excitement of the weekend had been building up until this point, right? Where it was like, it's Checo's at home. I mean, every time he went by anywhere in the crowd through practice, through qualifying, just that part of the crowd went crazy for Checo. So I mean, obviously
he's Superman.
He wants to go and do well, right? So when you're in his position and you see this giant opening, of course you're going to go for it. But at a certain point, when you get into that point where you have to actually turn the car and get through the apex, you got to assume a little bit more risk there. You can't just assume that
I don't even know if you can,
Charles is going to just let you by. Right?
Yeah, I don't even know if you can call it like assuming risk. You can't do that. He had a full car next to him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like he should have played it better is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like
he should have
been a little more calculated. But at the same time, I understand why he did what he did. But it is a shame just for him to have to go back to the garage and to deal with that and to come out and to answer the questions and to, face the fact that he let down his people, kind of sucks. So,
I mean, there's no other blame than Checo. So it was nice to see him take that blame too.
Yeah.
I didn't like his response being like, but we know we're good now. Because he had some kind of a response being like, well, we know the car's good. My launch was good. So like now we can move forward. It's like, no, dude, this is a big, big mistake that you made. Yeah. And it's a giant mental error. The fact that you didn't have the wherewithal to control your emotions, I get it. You want, he said he saw a gap and I wanted to win. Good. I hope so. He wanted desperately to get out in front of Max because getting out in front of Max lap 1 is his only real fighting chance, and then a pit stop strategy that hopefully the team allows him to go for it. But you had a better shot of backing out of that corner, not hitting Charles Leclerc, under braking, going around Charles Leclerc, probably losing out to both of them around that turn on the inside, right? Turn 2. He would have lost that had he gone around. And then overtaking Charles Leclerc in the DRS zone 2 laps later, and then having your way with Max, or having an attempt at catching Max. He probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But who knows? But P2 in your home race is 1,000 times better than DNF on lap 1, and that's what it ended up being.
At this stage of the year, it's as good as a win for him.
Yeah.
So
would have been. And this is as bad as it gets. I can't imagine a worst case scenario or a worse scenario than Checo Perez DNF turn 1 lap 1 Mexico City. Like, write that any worse.
Yeah, it's the most tragic event.
It literally is as bad as it gets. And it sucks because that launch was beautiful. You can tell he was dialed in, but it's another case, I've been saying it all year, of gripping the steering wheel a little too tight.
Yeah, and he's shown over the past little stint that he's been a little too careless, and especially when he's trying to wrap up second in the championship, he needs to tighten it up a little bit. So,
yeah.
So the race from that point until about lap 39, or was it 34? It was not quite halfway point of the race. We saw Kevin Magnussen with a pretty strange crash. Going through a little chicane. He had
heading towards the stadium section, right?
Headed towards the stadium section. He had been experiencing some overheating of his brakes. And then due to the excessive heat, one of the joints on the suspension of his left rear wheel just gave way. And so you can see it on the replay. His left rear tire is like pointing in.
Yeah.
So when he hits
was like it just completely folded.
Yeah, completely folded about the same time he hit that curb. And then when he should have been turning right, he basically went straight into the wall. So when he came out of the car immediately, and like when I just seeing his like body language, I was like, oh wow.
He did not look good.
I thought like maybe he got a concussion or he was stunned, right? Like,
yeah, it was a weird one because the impact didn't look too big, but the car was pretty mangled. So I wonder if like the G-force was so much heavier than it looked, His hands, I think, might have gotten a little bit rattled too, because if you can see when he immediately gets out of the car, he was shaking his wrists. Who knows if that was just nerves, But he also did this thing where he looked a little zoned out, like just in the face as he was walking away, and then he hid in the
Tech Pro.
The Tech Pro, he hid inside of it, like as if to hide from the cameras to not show.
That's what I thought.
Which I've never seen somebody do. So that's when I was like, oh, this is bad. I don't know what the medical evaluation, uncovered, if anything.
Yeah.
I think he might have just been really rattled.
Yeah.
But that was a big one. And then, brakes caught fire. And that's bad news for Haas. They've got a little bit more money because of sponsorship, but that's not a team with a bunch of money. And they've gone through cars over the past few years.
Yeah.
Like fucking condoms at a college. They're going to have to scrap the majority of that car and put together a brand new one in a week's time. So that's a big hit against the team.
Yeah.
They cannot seem to catch a break.
Well,
in
I'm just going to say,
dude.
it's like altogether just not a great weekend at all. Coda was supposed to be big for them with the big upgrades and everything.
And they had huge pace there too.
And in the race, it didn't work out for
them.
No, so
the opposite.
Very disappointing again for Haas. But this red flag did force a restart for the race. So this kind of changed things a little bit.
We should talk, before we get to the restart, we should talk about Lando Norris's from P20. By the time they hit the restart, where did he end up?
So at this point he was in P10.
So he moved up 10 places.
Moved up 10 places. On the restart though, he
blew it.
He started on mediums. A few of the drivers started on mediums. Most everybody else on hards. Lando himself said that he had a little bit of trouble getting temperature into the tires at the start of that restart. So at the start, he lost about 4 places within the first lap.
It was a really dusty track. I don't know if you noticed that. He had complained in his post-race interview about like some sort of an interference in his restart. So I don't know if it was just dust or temperature or a mix of the both, but it was some sort of elemental thing that was affecting him.
Yeah, he just couldn't get the temperature in the tires. So he struggled a little bit at first, but ended up on a little bit of a charge once tires started working out. Both him and Hamilton had both excellent charges at the stage of the race on the medium tires. We saw Lewis, he started on, let's see here, where did he start? 5th or 6th? Was it?
Lewis started 6th because Checo was in 5th.
Okay. So I don't know where exactly he was on the restart, maybe 4th or something like that.
Yeah.
He hadn't quite charged ahead as much, but in this last little 2/3 of the race, or third of the race, Lewis is just on a tear, makes his way past the Ferraris up into 2nd place.
He put a hell of a move on Carlos Sainz. That move to the right where he dipped his wheel
is beautiful
into the dirt a little bit. That straightaway, off the line might be one of the best sectors in F1. I know that track is not the best. We harp on that shit.
Yeah, there's some complaints about it being hard to pass on and such, but I would say that we actually got to see some pretty great battles.
Yeah, there was really good racing actually this year at Mexico.
Yeah, DRS was not as effective because of the altitude and stuff like that. So it was a little bit harder for some people to make passes. Like Esteban Ocon, he called out that he was going to pass. He said, "Fair warning to the Haas. I'm gonna make a move," and then it took him like 5 laps to get to 5 or 10
did you
laps.
see Nico's response to that?
I didn't see what he said.
Nico posted something on Instagram being like, "Oh, I hope you like the rear of my car. Get used to it," or something like that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Something silly like that.
George Russell had a really tough time getting past Oscar Piastri. Wasn't able to make it happen.
Did you hear whose comments were it? It was one of his friends. It was like Alex Albon or Charles Leclerc, one of the younger guys. It could have been Lando even, who made a comment about George and how reckless he can be, because they were either coming up to pass him or he was attempting to get around them.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, "Well, you know how he can be." So I like that he's starting to get that reputation.
Yeah, just
Deserved.
being a little too scrappy. But altogether, it's pretty amazing seeing Lando put his charge on, was able to get past the Alpines. He got past his teammate with no issue there. The team orders there worked pretty smoothly. You can see Oscar, when he first got the orders, he was like, "All right, got to hustle now." And then he locked up that one corner, and then as soon as he got the lock up, he was like, "Ah, all right,
we got to get this up."
I'm not gonna play around with that." So.
Yeah, good on you, Rook. Yeah, amazing to go from P20 to P10, and then from P10 to 14 all the way up to 5. Great drive from Lando.
Yeah, almost forgot one thing. My man Yuki Tsunoda had an amazing pace this weekend.
He looked good
in qualifying. He had already known that he was going to be taking a grid or a bunch of new engine components, so he was going to have to start from back of the grid. So his whole goal in qualifying was to get Ricciardo further up, which I think that did help Ricciardo a little bit. So in the race, we didn't quite know where Yuki would be, but he, starting from 17th or something like that, had gotten his way all the way up into 8th. Amazing pace. Up there, starts battling with Oscar Piastri. Couple laps go by. He touches Oscar once. Little scrappy. Come around the next lap, about the same place.
Yeah.
Yuki tries to turn in a little too early.
It's turn 1.
Was it turn 1?
Yeah, it's right off the straightaway, turn 1, and he ends up in the grass.
And Yuki just ultra frustrated with himself, as he should be, I think. Yeah. I think, was really bad for him. I think he, especially when on a weekend that Daniel does so well, he really needed to go and get points for that team. Yeah,
it would have been their first double point in, God, who knows? I mean, when's the last time AlphaTauri scored double points?
I don't remember, 2021 maybe.
I literally couldn't even tell you, but it was a good showing from them all weekend long. So yeah, it would have been really important for them to put up a good weekend total, and that just goes to show Yuki's maturity and his responsibility as a team member and just a driver in general. Wasn't there. He was driving a little bit too much for himself than he was.
Yeah, so still has a little bit of work to do. I don't know if you know this, but Yuki this year has been working with a new performance coach. I don't know if you know this. Michael Italiano. Do you know who he is?
He doesn't sound like a real person.
He's a real person. He was the guy that was Daniel Ricciardo's performance coach last year.
Oh, interesting.
So some people say that that relationship didn't quite work out, and that was part of the reason that contributed to Ricciardo's issues while he was in McLaren. So I don't know. Is there something with that? Maybe Michael.
So you're saying that this guy's having a negative impact on Yuki's performance?
He might be. I don't know.
Well, I mean, what does a performance coach even do?
I mean, these types of things, working with him on these types of things, staying more focused, not losing your cool, stuff like that. So I don't know. Something to think about. But
maybe. I mean, Daniel's issues were more racy and less of like a focus. Daniel wasn't like a reckless driver. He didn't do things he shouldn't be doing.
Could say he was struggling on the mental side of things, right? So
I guess, but it's like Yuki's just trying to do too much at the wrong time. I don't know.
Yeah. But anyways, what I wanted to say was, I really felt like this race was almost the perfect metaphor for this season.
How so?
Well, Max had a couple setbacks, but
still pulled
it through, dominated everybody. While his teammate, although showed glimmers of glory and strong pace, and as much as everyone wanted him to be the star, he tragically was not able to. We see both the Ferraris looking very strong, but don't quite have the pace to bring home the lead, right?
No finish.
Or to get them both on the podium.
Yeah, they had no finish.
Mercedes, specifically Lewis Hamilton, could argue outperforming the car, struggled much of the year, but through this last little stint has been just showing great pace and why he is the champion he is.
Yeah.
But getting potentially second place overall in the championship.
He is 20 points away right now, and he's looking on form to do it. It's very beautiful.
Yeah. The McLarens. Oscar, really great, up in there, definitely within the top 10 driver. Maybe still has a little bit to go, a little bit to learn. Lando, setback after setback, still showing the great pace, still getting in there and getting points for the team.
Lando is I feel like a continual work in progress, and I just as a Lando stan, want to see him nip all these little issues like starts. I think that's his main issue is his starts. He does not get a good launch often. A little bit of a lockup here and there, but he's so close to being that full package, and now I'm starting to wonder, is he ever going to get everything dialed into 100%? I hope so. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. He's just a sniff away. Two things I want to mention before we move on to our predictions recap. One, I want to harken back to Daniel Ricciardo and the amazing performance he had. Last lap of the race, Daniel Ricciardo in an AlphaTauri is chasing down George Russell in a Mercedes and almost had him.
Mm-hmm.
So just to reiterate how good of a weekend Daniel Ricciardo was having, that's the pace that he was having. And to shit on George Russell a little bit, that's how bad George Russell was doing. Is that he was being chased and almost lost out to an AlphaTauri.
Yeah. And running the same strategy as his teammate.
Exact same strategy, but still has the gusto to think that he is number one on that team. I will never let that go. I'm going to point out every instance of where that is false, every opportunity I get. And then I want to talk about the double DNF of Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, are things falling apart over there.
I mean, to further the metaphor for the year, Aston Martin, even though showing glimmers that maybe they still had it together, they ended up both DNFing.
Yeah, so they put together the upgrade package for Coda, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was Qatar that they had the bigger upgrades.
Oh, what?
But,
did they bring back-to-back upgrades, Qatar and Coda?
I don't know exactly.
I think also only one of the cars is running it.
Yeah, because they've been trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So Lance has been running the old spec, while Fernando running the new one.
Yeah, that's man, the tires have literally fallen off.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Aston Martin.
Along the same lines, speaking of last lap, and then continuing my metaphor for the thing,
Logan Sargent DNF on the. I mean,
when he was charging, he had gotten himself up to P12.
Yeah,
like actually looking
he
like,
actually had
he's
a good drive.
Yeah, good. And then they're like, very last lap. We need you to turn it. Literally, like less than 100 yards, not even 100 feet from where the finish line is.
He said something about that. He was like, it's right there.
Right. I could see it. Yeah.
He's like, the finish line is right there. Just let me finish.
But they have a fuel pump issue and they don't want to take an extra penalty for whatever,
stopping on the track
or if, driving the car unsafely or, who knows what the kind of penalty they can get from.
But we do have to give him props for that. Because two back-to-back good, solid drives. I think his last two races have been everything that he needs to be for the weekend. So before we do predictions, why don't we do your props and flops?
Let's do it. Go ahead.
Obvious big prop to Max Verstappen, beating your own record for wins in a season. Big props to Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris. I'll even give a prop. No, that's it. No, props to Daniel Ricciardo. Those are like the obvious ones. And then I think the flops are pretty obvious. Sergio Perez, flop. Aston Martin, flop. George Russell, and this is just going to be a regular thing, flop.
Throw him in there.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep mine a little more simple. I think my flop is going to go to Yuki. I'm disappointed in him. I think
that's a flop.
I expect more from him, especially at this point. And then my big props, I think, are going to go to Lando. Just overcoming all adversity. Even though somewhat self-inflicted, he still brought it home.
Yeah, I have one more thing to get to, too.
Okay.
Did you see the interview after the race with Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo?
Yes.
My God, that could not have been more cringy. That was one of the worst interviews I've seen in years in F1. That was, it couldn't have been more.
I don't know if it was the worst in years, but it was pretty awkward. It was weird,
think of one that was weirder than that. It was so fucking weird. It starts off with Lando Norris just doing a regular post-race presser with Will Buxton and James Hinchcliffe, right?
Uh-huh.
Daniel Ricciardo walks up for some reason, and they want to do a dual interview with these two.
Uh-huh.
Daniel Ricciardo's opening line is, "Did you fart?" He comes up to Lando and he goes, "Whew," and he starts going, "Oh, something stinks." And he goes to Lando, "Did you fart?" And Lando, being kind of like, an awkward young guy, doesn't know what to say. He's not like a great interviewer. He's not a big media guy. Gets super weird. Daniel Ricciardo then takes the opportunity of this press conference to just try and be boastful in this weird, jokey way with Lando, where he's like, he's like, before the restart, did you have good pace? And Lando was like, yeah, I had really good pace. He went from P20 to P10. So Lando was like, yeah, I had really good pace. And he goes, oh, do you think you would have caught me?
Yeah.
And Lando's like, he said something like, I think so. And then Daniel was like, oh, but I would have beat you something. So, oh, good. I forget what he fucking said. I should have watched it before.
Yeah, I'd clocked that when I was listening to it. And I was like, that's so weird. Like Daniel was trying to insinuate that the only reason Lando caught him was because of the restart.
Yeah,
which I don't think was really true. I think if anything, he lost time because of it. Right.
Most likely.
Right.
Because he would have maybe had one more stop. I don't know, but
no, because at the restart he lost places, so he had to repass those 4 cars.
Exactly. But I mean, I think Daniel's trying to say like the timing of things wouldn't have worked out right because Lando would have maybe needed another. I don't know what he was trying to insinuate because it just sounded like bullshit. And then he wrapped it up by just being like, okay, so I would have beat you anyway. I would have beat you something. And then Lando like awkwardly just stood there quiet with a Fuchi face and was like, if I had qualified better, I would have been on the podium. And Daniel was just like, okay. And so then the interviewers go, oh, well, Daniel asked you a question. Lando, is there any question that you want to ask Daniel?
Oh, yeah.
And Lando just goes like, and sits there awkwardly and just goes, yeah, so how did you feel? How was your hand, after?
I thought that was a good question, though, because I don't think anybody had asked him that.
Yeah, but it was just so painfully awkward because Lando wasn't in this jokey mood the way that Daniel was trying to be, and then he gets put on the spot, and he's not a good media guy. So it was just this real weird moment for Lando, and then it felt to me like they couldn't dislike each other more.
Yeah,
or at least
the slight beef is still palpable.
Yeah, like that. It felt to me like Lando just genuinely doesn't like Daniel, and that Daniel's just this like obnoxious character in Lando's
I think
life.
Daniel's still a little bitter about how last year went and that whole situation. So
not last year before, or both him sitting out, I guess.
21, 22.
Sure.
And just him now having this moment to be like, oh look, I still got it. He's gonna try to.
Well, look who beat, but it's like you lost out.
Yeah,
he passed you.
Yeah, for
he
good
gained
reason.
15 spots,
and nobody was expecting, Daniel to beat him or to have the better. So just the fact that he was able to finish where he was, people are proud of him. So just leave it at that.
Dude, it's so weird because all of like F1 Twitter and F1 internet shit is after that interview, they were, memeing it and being like, oh, these two, this dynamic duo, it's so great to see them back together. They're like the best of friends. I'm like, what interview are you guys watching? Lando cannot stand this guy.
When have they ever been like best buds? I don't know.
Lando and Carlos were best buds, and it's like they're trying to repaint Lando and Carlos's friendship to be what Lando and Daniel had. I don't think those dudes ever got along.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we can get into the internet stuff here in a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, how do you feel about where this race stacks up?
I think we might need to be rethinking the race of the season. Are we talking about on-track racing, or are we talking about the event, the drama?
Well, I think
the happenings of everything.
About this. We did talk about this before, and then I think the decision that we made was that, yes, the everything surrounding the weekend
package deal.
Yes.
I usually go first. I'm gonna have you go first on this one.
Okay. It was a pretty great race. I don't know if it was anywhere near the best racing we've seen. Right now I'm struggling either. It's going to go in 6th ahead of Austria.
Wow.
Or 7th ahead of Coda.
I can't even recall Austria right now and what happened. So I'm thinking that was just good racing and there wasn't a whole lot of drama. Mm-hmm. So I'm comfortable putting it in 6th ahead of Austria for the fact that it had all the drama. We had 2 starts, one big crash, everything surrounding Checo, and the fact that it was much better racing than we expected at this track.
100%.
When you can see a race outrace the track or outperform the track, I think that's big points. So six best race of the year. I'm happy with that.
Okay. So for our predictions, you had Checo qualifying top 5, which
Qualified P5.
P5. So
Let's go.
point.
Let's fucking go.
And then you had Carlos outperforming Leclerc. Unfortunately,
Where did Leclerc finish? He podiumed.
Third and fourth. So it was close.
Damn, how
Carlos
much?
Carlos was sick this weekend. He missed Thursday. So.
He was. I should get a half a point for that, probably. How much time? How far off was Carlos? Can you check the timing chart right there, real quick? 7 seconds. Is that what that says?
4, less than 4.
Less than 4 off of Chuck.
Actually, a little bit more than 4, but
okay, not too bad. He was sick. Yeah, he missed
Thursday.
Missed Thursday's entire presser and all that shit, and then they had a rookie in the car on FP1 anyways, right?
Mm-hmm. Schwartzman. Both Astons in the points.
Wow.
I don't know what you were thinking with that one, but
wait, I didn't have a Daniel prediction. I didn't have Daniel back.
Oh,
in the
maybe
points?
it was AlphaTauri's. Maybe. Did you say? I think maybe you said AlphaTauri's, right?
I don't know. We're gonna have to revisit this because why would I have put both Aston Martins?
I think it might have been AlphaTauri and autocorrected or something. Because I just had it said like Asto or something like that. So maybe. I was like,
okay, that's gonna be on hold. We'll check that and we'll correct it.
I had Checo on the podium.
Well,
didn't happen. Lando podium streak stays alive.
Well,
unfortunately, did not happen. Alfa Romeo in the points. Freaking Valtteri Bottas, man, like actually had great pace. Qualified 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Both those cars back of the field.
Didn't he get into some shit with somebody?
He might have.
Yeah, something happened where he he either squeezed or got squeezed, and it was like not really his fault. Something like that. I don't remember.
All right. Well,
so I had 2 points, right?
Just one, I think, right now. So because if you had both alphas in points, Yuki would not have gotten.
So it's an asterisk one.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's about it.
All right. That has been the Mexico City Grand Prix. Guys, please remember, if you haven't already, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok and on Twitter. Like all of our posts, share our videos. We appreciate it. It goes a long way. Check out the link in our bio at our With Koji. We got a bunch of cool stuff there, merch, tip jar, all sorts of shit. And we will see you guys next time at the Prix
Brazil.
The Prix Brazil. Sao Paulo, Interlagos, one of the best tracks, probably the best of the year. This has been Into the Chicane Formula One podcast, post Mexico Grand Prix edition. Peace.